Important notice, also known as Ming Song, the son of the Ming Dynasty's black sheep. In the 11th year of the Hongji reign. This is a beautiful morning. At this time, Zhu Hozhao had just reached adulthood. At this time, Wang Shouren and Tang Bohu sharpened their knives and prepared for the imperial examination. At this point, the Little Ice Age has arrived, and the long and severe cold is ravaging the earth. At this time, in the mansion of Nanhebo, Fang Jifan, the foolish son of the landlord's family and the legitimate heir of Nanhebo, began his shameless and impetuous life as a spendthrift. Q Group 4919666624 VIP Reader Group, fan value needs to be verified. 62344390 keywords of the novel. Ming Dynasty Loser without pop-ups. Download the complete set of Ming Dynasty Loser TXT, and read the latest chapters of Ming Dynasty Loser. 1. Chapter 1. Don't Give Up Treatment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Don't Give Up Treatment. Fang Jifan rubbed his eyes and looked blankly at the red curtain in front of him. In the distance, there were furniture like xianqin tables and rosewood stools. Standing in front of the curtain was a guy in a blue coat and a small hat, staring at him intently. Then, this guy showed a smiley face that was not worthy of being beaten, with a tingling flattery in his smile. Young master is awake. Fang Jifan's heart thumped for a moment. It was wearing time travel, because he could clearly hear that the person in the blue clothes and small hat was speaking Fengyang Mandarin. As an expert in Ming history, Fang Jifan was 100% certain that the furnishings here, as well as this inexplicable man, could never have created such a scene in his own era, even with a large investment in film and television. Without any fear or shock, Fang Jifan felt a faint excitement in his heart. After so many years of learning, unexpectedly, today he could catch a glimpse of the ancients. Ancient people, looking at this guy with a somewhat vulgar smile, Fang Jifan couldn't help but think, is this an ancient person? Is this the year of Hongji? Fang Jifan saw a calligraphy and painting on the wall, and the inscription on it was a calligrapher from the Jingtong year of the Ming Dynasty. And leaning against the bed, the style of the xianqin table also caught the attention of Fang Jifan. This was the style of the mid-Ming Dynasty, but it was not very popular after the Hongji Dynasty. The xianqin table seemed to be newly made, so it should be undoubtedly during the Hongji period. The person in green clothes and small hats nodded, but still looked straight at Fang Jifan. Upon confirmation, Fang Jifan suddenly sat up from the bed, patted his thigh, and excitedly said, "Is Prince Ning still alive? There is still the rebellion of the little prince in the north, and the handicraft and textile industry in the south has begun to rise." Fang Jifan's face lit up and he said, "The current emperor is also considered a saint, with great potential." Fang Jifan is very excited. This is a good era. As a man, he studies and studies history, and inevitably has too many regrets. He didn't have much success in his previous life, and he never expected to finally come to a place where he could be useful. Fang Jifan couldn't help but want to laugh, because he worked in the library and studied Ming history. Not only did he have a deep understanding of Ming history, but he also knew the local chronicles of this era very well. To put it bluntly, even if a few thieves broke out in a certain county on a certain day or month, his amazing memory could still leave an impression. In my previous life, I was also lonely and helpless, but coming to this era doesn't seem bad. Fang Jifan even admires his own heart. Very much. The guy in the green coat and small hat's face changed, but he hesitated and said, "Young master. You said. There is great potential." That's right. Fang Jifan perked up and realized that he was a young master, so this person was either a book boy or a long-term follower. His excitement had not yet dissipated, and he said enthusiastically, "The man is still alive, he should be the top scorer and have made great contributions." At this point, the expression of the person in the green coat and small hat transformed from doubt to sadness. He shouted loudly, "Young master! Young master! Has fallen ill again. Come. Where are you?" Fang Jifan was surprised. "What's going on? What's going on?" Pop! The door was suddenly knocked open by several strong men, who looked like wolves and tigers. The sunlight outside also fell in, and these burly bodies covered the excess light. Then, a slightly trembling person wearing a Confucian robe, with a goat beard and a gentleman-like appearance, walked in with a medicine box on his back and excitedly said, young master's illness has happened again. Hurry, get an injection." With a single command, the robust men rushed towards Fang Jifan and immediately took control of him. Fang Jifan's pupils contracted, NMGB, and he cursed in his heart because he saw that the old man had taken out an inch-long silver needle from the box with a sorrowful expression on his face. Fang Jifan said, "The young master's illness is a brain disease, and we must not shy away from seeking medical treatment. Come here, don't be afraid. Just get a shot." Fang Jifan was so frightened that his chin was about to fall off. I'm not sick." While applying the needle, the doctor shook his head and said, "Yes, it was the same symptom when he was ill in the past. Young master, bear with it. I have inherited this acupuncture and moxibustion method from my ancestors. If you are ill, you can still keep fit. Young master, you can lie down steadily." Ah! With a pig-like howl, after half a sound, Fang Jifan disappeared. Both hands and feet were controlled by someone, but the old man actually inserted a silver needle directly into the back of his head. Fang Jifan stopped shouting, but was so scared that he gritted his teeth and dared not move, afraid that if he moved, the old man's needle would go astray. "The most important thing is that I have been afraid of getting injections since I was young. A needle so long, piercing into the head, it's not a cure. It's murder, your uncle." Before the needle could be taken out, the old man pinched his beard and shook his head, sighing, "There is no cure for a mentally disabled person. I just followed the ancient prescription to temporarily control my condition. Whether I can recover depends on the young master's own luck." The guy in green clothes and a small hat hid on the edge of the bed, sobbing softly and saying, young master, Dr. Fang is a famous doctor invited by uncle. Don't be afraid, just give him a few months of injections and he will be cured. Uncle has instructed me to treat my illness as long as it can be cured, no matter what method I use. In any case, I must not avoid medical treatment. Young master is uncle's only son, please endure it. Please endure it. Fang Jifan's face was pale, but he was trembling. At noon. The scenery outside the window was pleasant, but Fang Jifan didn't have the mood to appreciate the scenery. This is already the 27th day that Fang Jifan has come to this world. Of course, he no longer knows how many needles he has been punctured. Each time he has been punctured, it is like walking through the gates of hell for Fang Jifan. An ancient, famous doctor inserted a silver needle into the back of your brain and stirred it slightly. Looking back to this day, Fang Jifan shuddered all over. 27 days is enough to make Fang Jifan understand everything. The original owner of this body was the only son of Ming Nan and Fang Jinglong. The hereditary count of the Fang family was earned during the Jingnan campaign. The ancestors followed Prince Yan Zhu Di from the Dragon and from Beiping City to Nanjing. Zhu Di was quite kind and gave him an iron rice bowl with a wave of his hand. And the owner of this body, all right. No wonder I was treated as a brain jerk just by saying what a man should do, because this guy is a complete scumbag and scumbag, the biggest villain in the capital, the scumbag among the scumbags, and can be said to be full of evil. A few days ago, this guy fell ill, so he invited a famous doctor to see him. It was probably because he had a mental problem and never gave up treatment. After Fang Jifan traveled through time, the reason why people mistakenly thought that his illness was not cured was because he had a completely different personality from the former spendthrift, so treatment still needs to continue. That's too foolish. Fang Jifan reflected on himself and realized that he was still too young. When he first arrived, he even talked to people about making achievements and serving the country and the people. This was just seeking inspiration. A notorious spendthrift with such abnormal behavior, in the eyes of others, is not a lunatic. What is it? Okay, in order to give up treatment, I must be even more powerful than the former Fang Jifan. At this moment, the door to the sleeping room had already opened, and a pretty-looking little girl came in. Behind her came Fang Jifan's long follower, who was the guy in green clothes and a small hat named Deng Jian. A new day has begun again. Fang Jifan took a deep breath. Over the past 20 days, he had already figured out the rules and roughly understood the background of the family. Naturally, he had already gained a thorough understanding of the original Fang Jifan. The little girl arrived at the bed and bowed, "Young master, get up." Fang Jifan opened his eyes and showed impatience. He encouraged himself in his heart, saying, "You're a spendthrift, you're a spendthrift. Don't show your horse." Fang Jifan said fiercely, "When is it?" "In the early morning. What is the name of a ghost?" The little girl was frightened and her pretty face was slightly unnatural. "Day. The sun is rising 3 times. Only 3 strokes." Fang Jifan gritted his teeth and said, "Young master, am I someone who only got up 3 strokes ago? Sleep for another hour." Deng Jian, dressed in green and with a small hat, quickly approached and nodded, saying, "Young master, it's too early, but I'm afraid young master might be hungry." All right. Fang Jifan had to stand up and change clothes under the care of the little girl. Deng Jian, standing beside him, chuckled contemptuously and said, "Young master is wise, young master is divine and martial. Young master remains true to his true colors, admired by petty people, and devoted to the world. Fuck you." Fang Jifan lifted his leg and kicked Deng Jian over, angrily saying, "Young master, besides being handsome and graceful, he has no other strengths. How dare you say that he is a wise and divine warrior? Can he be a food for food? He's like a dog." Deng Jian rolled on the ground and burst into tears. Fang Jifan was startled in his heart. Why, did he kick too hard just now? Sin, I'm really sorry, but... Hey, Buddy is also in a difficult situation. If this young master is polite, how can he give up treatment? Unexpectedly, Deng Jian rolled over with a roll, but looked up excitedly and said, "The young master's illness has finally improved. I'm really happy for the young master. I'm crying with joy." Fang Jifan is as stiff as a wooden chicken. Is this okay? End of this chapter. Chapter 2. I am a loser. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. I am a loser. Under the service of Xiao Xiangxiang, Fang Jifan rinsed his mouth and had just finished breakfast when the famous doctor arrived. The doctor's face was flushed and his expression was bright. It was said that the young master's brain disease was getting better and better, and everyone in the mansion called him a divine doctor. Although he was humble, his heart was filled with joy. As usual, carrying a medicine box on his back, he greeted Fang Jifan with a smile and said, "I have seen Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang's complexion has improved a lot. Students should first check his pulse." Fang Jifan had a bit of instinctive fear towards this doctor. After a moment's thought, he looked up at him with his nose in the air and crossed his legs, saying, "I have already recovered." "What pulse, you old dog? Get out of here." Ha ha. The doctor chuckled dryly. As a doctor, being scolded as an old dog is indeed a shameful thing. However, although there was a slight displeasure, the doctor still showed a pleased smile and sighed, "Yes, the young master's illness has indeed improved greatly. I am very. Get lost." Fang Jifan finally understood his way of survival. The more arrogant and domineering he was, the happier and more pleased he was. This was really a divine world. Okay. The doctor didn't get angry at all, but turned his head and instructed Deng Jian, if the young master shows any signs of illness again, he must report it in a timely manner. Young master. I'm sorry to say goodbye. Seeing the doctor leave happily, Fang Jifan breathed a sigh of relief. Just escaped a disaster, and Fang Jifan became empty and lonely again. Does he have to pretend to be a scumbag for his whole life? No, it's not exciting to live like this. We must do something big, but right now Fang Jifan stood up and said, Little Deng. Xiao Deng Deng is Deng Jian's exclusive name, but it is obvious that Deng Jian is not very pleased with the way he calls himself after his family. He replied with a bitter face, What do you have to do, young master? Fang Jifan smiled and said, Let's go, accompany me for a walk in the mansion. Okay. Deng Jian quickly went to get a xiang fei fan and a coquettish sachet, and said with an invitation, Young master, when you go out, you love to bring this. Fang Jifan had a black line on his face. Does the owner of this body still have such fun? He smiled and skillfully instructed Xiaoxiangxiang to tie the sachet around her waist, playing with the xiangfei fan in her hand. As she closed and closed it, there were even poems on the fan. Fang Jifan glanced at it and saw that the fan read. I advise you not to cherish your golden silk clothes, I advise you to cherish your youth. When flowers bloom, they must be broken straight. Don't wait for them to be broken without flowers. The artistic conception of this poem is quite good, but Fang Jifan knew that the owner of this fan had a malicious understanding of this poem, and couldn't help but curse in his heart, Bah, stinky and vulgar. Although I feel contemptuous in my heart, I still have to live on. Boosting his spirits, he followed Deng Jian out of the bedroom and truly witnessed Nanhebo mansion. Fang Jifan couldn't help but marvel. This mansion covers a huge area, at least 50 acres, with a continuous ridge of rows and scales, 3 entrances and 3 exits, and dozens of rooms including the main hall, front hall, backyard, wing rooms, and firewood rooms. Fang Jifan was very satisfied and instinctively shook the xiang fei fan. The only downside was that this mansion is a bit old, at least 100 years old, and looks very mottled. He couldn't help but say, this house needs to be repaired. Repair. Repair the house. Deng Jian exclaimed in surprise. Fang Jifan patted his head and said, a dog-like thing. The reason why the young master got sick must be because this house is too old and renovated. Do you understand? Deng Jian smiled again and said, Young master, you're right. Are you saying that the yin energy in the mansion is heavy? I understand, but repairing the house will cost a lot of money. Fang Jifan raised his eyebrows and said, Tang Tang Nan and Bo Fu, are you still short of silver? Lack. Deng Jian's answer made Fang Jifan a bit confused. Young master usually doesn't care about things. The thousands of acres of good farmland in the suburbs of Beijing in the mansion, but after all, what is planted is also grain. Although uncle has a salary and reward, the actual silver is not much, it is all the treasure money of our Ming Dynasty. Bao Chao. Fang Jifan understands. This is the unique paper currency of the Ming Dynasty. Unfortunately, the court printed too many, which is not worth much money. He suddenly remembered that the economic characteristics of this era were already like this. Although the value of land was high, most wealthy households rented it out to farmers for cultivation, and what they received was of course grain. This grain was also piled up in barns, although it was also exchanged for money. However, Nanha uncle's mansion, after all, had such a large family business and high expenses, so naturally, there was no need to expect much cash on the books. It's not a solution to pretend to be crazy and foolish like this. It's better to be independent. Only by being independent, such as having money, can one avoid being controlled and easily caught and given injections? Besides, do you really want to be a lifelong spendthrift? No way. Fang Jifan felt that in his previous life, he was at least a top student and a talented young man. He wanted to be self-reliant and self-reliant. But what if there's no silver? Fang Jifan squinted his eyes and suddenly became excited. There is a way to make money. Now it is March 17th, the 11th year of the Hongji reign. Half a month later, Fang Jifan vaguely remembered that there was a record in the local chronicles of Tongzhou that dozens of ships carrying ebony sank in Baitongzhu. In addition, ebony was increasingly favored by the wealthy during the Hongji period, so the price of ebony continued to rise. Fang Jifan remembered that the price of ebony skyrocketed to an unprecedented level. This ebony is naturally rare, and most shipping involves loading large quantities of ebony together. Once these dozens of ships sink, it means that there will be an extreme shortage of ebony on the market in the future. Fang Jifan's eyes lit up and a thought came to his mind, hoarding ebony. But what about silver? Even before the price doubled, the price of ebony was frightening. He squinted his eyes and said, "How much silver is still in the mansion's account?" Deng Jian shuddered and looked at Fang Jifan in panic. "There shouldn't be much left. At most, it's only a few hundred taels of silver." "Young master, you want to..." Upon hearing a few hundred taels, Fang Jifan vented his anger. However, soon he had another idea. There was no silver, but the Fang family had land. If he changed his mind, no, selling land. This young master is familiar with history, and the thinking of ancient people is different from that of modern people. In the eyes of the ancients, selling land was only a business that could be done by destitute households and black sheep, and it would be pricked by people's spines. A spendthrift? Am I just a textbook-style spendthrift? Is there anyone in Beijing who is even worse off than our successor? Fang Jifan's eyes lit up and he roared loudly, "Call the steward and the accountant." The power of the young master of the Fang family was still very strong. In an instant, the young steward and the Lu accountant from the mansion arrived. The two of them were panting and their eyes were dripping as they looked at Fang Jifan. Fang Jifan stood with his legs crossed. Although he was sitting, the two people in front of him dared not be taller than Fang Jifan, so they bent down. This actually made Fang Jifan sit with his legs crossed and appear taller than them. Looking down at them from a high position, it still felt like a young master. Fang Jifan then said, "How much land is there in the mansion?" The Zhuangzi outside the city covers 2,370 acres, and in addition, there are several mountains covering thousands of acres. Yang, the steward, said as if inviting credit. He heard that the young master had a brain disease and had been treating it these days, but he was very concerned. It is said that he is getting better now, so his eyes were fixed on the young master, wanting to see if he is doing well. "How much silver can it be sold?" Fang Jifan's next sentence almost choked manager Yang to death. Yang Guancher's first reaction was not to worry, but to slightly raise his eyebrows and eyes, and exchange a glance with Lu Zhangfang beside him. Oh, the young master's illness has really improved. The Fang family is fortunate. Do you think that the young master could even think of selling land for money? In this city of Beijing, besides the young master of our Fang family, who else could say such words so gracefully? Our young master has really come back. Upon seeing the happy expression on Heir's face, Fang Jifan felt that the world had gone crazy. He had to use the fan handle to knock the table a few times and said, "If you have any questions, how much can we sell? Let me count them all and send news to the dental firm. Sell the land, everything that can be sold, and not leave a single acre." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Puppy selling. Yi Tian's heart does not pain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Puppy selling. Yi Tian's heart does not pain. Before the joy had dissipated, Manager Yang suddenly remembered the young master's mention of selling land, and his smile froze. At this moment, someone shouted loudly and rushed towards Fang Jifan, holding onto his thigh. They wept and said, young master, you can't sell land. Young master, you can't sell land. This is going to be a huge blow to the sky. If you sell it, everyone in the capital will laugh and poke the spine of the Fang family. If uncle knows. Sob. It turned out to be Deng Jian, with tears streaming down his face. He only hugged Fang Jifan's thigh and burst into tears. Manager Yang's face was also very unhappy. Selling land. Just now, he thought to himself that besides the young master of the Fang family who would ponder this shameless matter, who else could ask about selling land? He was quite happy in his heart. Anyway, the young master's illness has finally healed. But now that he has regained his flavor, he really wants to sell it. Yang, the steward, knelt down with a thud and said, young master, Deng Jian is right. We can't sell it. If we sell it, our Nanha mansion will really become a big joke. If young master is short of silver, let me tell you, old Lu, how much silver is still in our account now. Lu Zhangfang's eyes turned red and he grabbed his heart, feeling a severe pain in his heart. He also sobbed uncontrollably and said, young master, the younger generation has been serving the late master, and young master in the mansion. At least Nanha Uncle Mansion is also one of the few families in the capital. This land cannot be sold, it cannot be sold. If we sell the land, our family will be defeated. Surprisingly, it makes sense. In this era, people often value the land more than the sky. Selling ancestral property and land is something that only the underprivileged and the black sheep can do. Fang Jifan was obviously convinced by them, saying, you are all right. Selling land is the business of the black sheep. But when you go out of the mansion, go to the neighbors to inquire, and in this capital, who is the biggest black sheep? Fang Jifan held his chest high and exuded a rainbow-like aura. At this moment, he had some small pride. The black sheep were also very good, such as selling land. If someone dared not sell it, I would dare to sell it. How could they make money or take advantage of the opportunity to make a big profit? Why are you crying? Anyone who dares to cry will break his leg and laugh. Don't you know the rules of the mansion? I'm my father's only son. My father is now leading troops to suppress thieves for the imperial court. Now this family is my young master's the final say. Who dares to oppose it? Upon seeing Fang Jifan's grinning expression, Deng Jian, Yang Guanshi, and Lu Wangfang all took a deep breath. They knew what kind of temper the young master had. In the past, when the young master was angry, he could kill someone. So they dared not burst into tears and only sobbed softly. I said, sell as soon as you want, and from now on, I'll sell everything I can. Please invite the dental staff to come, and once we've agreed, we'll hire the guarantor. Let's go now. At this point, we must not be discouraged. If there is a slight softness, we will definitely not be able to control them. Lu Zhangfang wept and said, young master, can you prophesy and say uncle? No need, home. Fang Jifan originally wanted to call his father, but his body suddenly shook. No, he shouldn't have called his father. He almost revealed his true identity. He then gritted his teeth and showed a bold expression. What do you think that old man is doing? If I say sell, I have to sell. The young master was furious in the mansion, so much so that the entire Fang family was trembling with fear. The loyal servant Deng Jian had already passed out, and Lu Zhangfang was also carried to seek medical treatment due to a heart attack. In the early morning of the next day, when the sun was rising again, Fang Jifan was dressed under the care of Xiao Xiangxiang. Deng Jian's eyes were swollen like a light bulb, and when he woke up last night, he cried again. Fang Jifan ignored him, but thought that the doctor might come to see him later and not get injected again. So he looked at Xiao Xiangxiang with a mischievous expression and said, Xiao Xiangxiang, I haven't seen you for a day. You've grown up again, come, young master. Xiao Xiangxiang's eyes were red and she dared not move. Fang Jifan pointed at her and dodged, so she climbed down the donkey. It was evident that Xiao Xiangxiang was standing like a wooden stake, but couldn't help but complain, shouting in her heart, You're actually hiding. Helpless, he had to extend his despicable salty pig hand and pinch Xiao Xiangxiang. This soft hand made Fang Jifan feel both ashamed and speechless. However, it was so big that he was shocked. He didn't even know how to touch it, so he couldn't help but feel that the rice of the Fang family raised people. Xiao Xiangxiang still had red eyes and put on a sachet for Fang Jifan. When she looked up with a pretty face, tears welled up in her eyes. Fang Jifan couldn't help but feel a little guilty and cursed the former Fang Jifan for his bad reputation. Deng Jian then said on the side, Young master. The dentist has arrived. Good day. Fang Jifan freed himself from embarrassment and took the Xiangfei fan tied around his waist. He opened the fan loudly and said, Let's go and meet him for a while. Leading Deng Jian into the hall, he saw a burly merchant anxiously waiting here. This person seemed to have arrived at the Fang family, appearing shorter and slightly uneasy. As soon as he saw Fang Jifan, he quickly stood up and saluted, Little Wang Jinyuan, you've seen the young master. Fang Jifan sat down, crossed his legs, and with a snap of his fan, he slammed it onto the table and said, No need to be polite. You already know about the land, do you want to go and see it? No. I dare not. Wang Jinyuan smiled cautiously, trying his best to make himself harmless to humans and animals. This young master is a famous playboy. If he accidentally said something wrong, who knows if he can walk out today? He said with a smile, How could the young master of the Fang family know that they are all good farmland? In terms of market price, at least 30 taels per acre, 2,000 taels of land, and 60 or 70,000 taels of land are not a problem. Moreover, this year is a good year. There are fewer people selling land, but more people buying. As long as the young master is truly willing to sell, the young master should be more dedicated. I won't let the young master suffer. Only 60,000 to 70,000 Fang Jifan had some regrets. Upon careful consideration, 1 or 2 silver coins in this era are not a small amount, which can be equivalent to about 200 yuan, 60,000 or 70,000 taels in later generations, which is equivalent to hundreds or tens of millions of dollars. Fang Jifan still refused and said, Is that all? Although Wang Jinyuan had a smile on his face, he despised the other party's succession in his heart. The non-Hebo lineage, as well as the people in the capital, knew that they were all resolute men who had made countless contributions to the court. How could this generation produce such a guy? If it were my son, it would be better to cut off his son than to strangle him. With a sigh in his heart, Wang Jinyuan chuckled and said, Young master, the price is already quite high. Fang Jifan had no choice but to give up. After all, he was a spendthrift and couldn't show his shrewdness in business in front of others. So he waved his hand and said, All right, that's settled. Little Deng and Deng, pour tea for this one of us. This one who cares about his mother. This young master loves making friends the most. Come, sit down, sit down. Wang Jinyuan was extremely embarrassed, but he dared not disobey. He obediently leaned down and sat down. When Deng Jian went to pour tea, he saw Fang Jifan playing with the Xiangfei fan without saying a word. He felt uncomfortable with his eyes anywhere. His gaze flickered, but he looked at a calligraphy and painting on the wall and couldn't help but say, Non-Hebo mansion is really different. This painting of Zhao Yuan's Qingchuan farewell to guests usually requires people to press the bottom of the box if they get it. Unexpectedly, Bo Mansion was hung directly in the hall, which opened my eyes. Originally, Wang Jinyuan was just taking the opportunity to praise. People who do business always have a sweeter mouth, especially when encountering such a mixed-world demon. Kafang Jifan squinted his eyes and suddenly smelled a business opportunity. What price? What is the price? Wang Jinyuan was stunned. Fang Jifan stared at him with bright eyes and said, of course this painting is. How much can it sell? I think there are also hundreds of taels of silver. Although this is Zhao Yuan's masterpiece, after all, Zhao Yuan's work is not very old, and he is still a bit behind the ancient sages. Fang Jifan's spirit was shaken and he patted the case and said, I'll sell it. This. It's also for sale. Wang Jinyuan's tiger body shook and looked at Fang Jifan in surprise. Surprisingly forgot to seek support. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Loser. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The loser. Before Wang Jinyuan could recover from his shock, Fang Jifan seemed to have discovered the new world and pointed to the tables and chairs, saying, how are these tables and chairs? Okay, it's made of chicken wing wood, and it looks like it's the work of a famous craftsman. Although it's been a while, there are quite a few people on the market who love to collect it. How much silver? This set. Fang Jifan said excitedly, what's more, let's go and take a look. Our Fang family has a lot of good things, come and come. He grabbed Wang Jinyuan's arm and walked out of the living room. Deng Jian happened to bring tea in and almost bumped into Fang Jifan. Fang Jifan said, little Deng, let's go and show this person the way. Show him our house. Wang Jinyuan felt like he was going crazy. It's a big eye-opening. This spendthrift is planning to package the Fang family and sell them together. Is that why he's short of money? Did you lose by playing with money, or without much thought? He was dragged by Fang Jifan and began to admire each room one by one. This is the Autumn Mountain map, which is valuable and may cost 300 taels. There are so many chicken wing wood furniture here. Young master, this bed is extraordinary. It seems to be crafted by skilled craftsmen. Look at these mortise and tenon joints, they are really seamless. With this whole set, I'm afraid there won't be 150 taels of silver. Deng Jian was stunned. Young master, you even sell beds? Fang Jifan suddenly remembered again. By the way, there was also a study on this side. He directly pulled Wang Jinyuan and walked towards the study. Wang Jinyuan's eyes suddenly lit up, and his gaze couldn't move on the antique shelf of the study. I saw that the antique shelf was filled with various colored bronzeware and blue and white vases. Wang Jinyuan was from a dental profession and had some knowledge. He approached with excitement and held a blue and white vase, saying, this is the Tianting glazed string patterned vase from the Ru kiln in the Song Dynasty. Tian, let me take a look. Don't look anymore. Fang Jifan grabbed him and said, they're all genuine products. Can't the Fang family still fake them? Let's talk about the price. Wang Jinyuan looked at him in a daze and said, if these are all genuine products. I'm afraid we'll add the previous land, calligraphy, painting, furniture, less. He swallowed his saliva before saying, at least we can sell 10,000 taels of silver. There are many treasures here, and they can't even be bought on the market. Young master. Seriously. Young master. A mournful roar came from Fang Jifan's ear, and he saw Deng Jian fall to the ground. He hugged his legs and shouted, young master, you can't do it. Young master, even the tables, chairs, and beds have been sold. Where will young master and uncle sleep in the future? And these are all precious items of the old master. When uncle is at home, he should be careful to wipe them every day. These are ancestral items and are family heirlooms. Fang Jifan couldn't bear this Deng Jian for a long time. He used to think he was not scumbag enough, and when he was a little more normal, he would spread the word and ask someone to give him an injection. Now that I have regained my status as a spendthrift, why are you crying? Fang Jifan pointed at Deng Jiandao and said, "How much can this be worth?" Ah! Wang Jinyuan couldn't come to his senses after a long time. Fang Jifan gritted his teeth and said, "I'm talking about this guy. Can a human tooth shop accept him or not? How much can he sell?" Wang Jinyuan, after all, was professional. He glanced up and down at Deng Jian rolling on the ground, then picked up his big belly and said with a smile, "I'm still young, but unfortunately my skin is a bit rough. I'm afraid ordinary people's inner courtyards wouldn't accept it. People are too thin and afraid they don't have the energy, so they just carry bags and do miscellaneous work, which is not easy to use. This. Besides eating dry food, it's also of little use. It's not worth it, it's not worth it. 3 taels of silver is the most." Fang Jifan suddenly showed a regretful expression, "Only 3 taels of silver. Well, this young master is someone who does great things. Selling 3 taels of silver is not worth it, so I'll reluctantly keep it for use." He quickly smiled again and said, "Look, what else is valuable? Don't be polite, tell me, my lord." Wang Jinyuan was already scared. In fact, he wanted to back down. Although the profit from this transaction may be substantial, he had never seen such a loser before. He couldn't help but think that this loser must be deceiving. However, Fang Jifan's next words dispelled his doubts. "Let's discuss the price again. It's about the same, so let's send someone to move it. Tomorrow, I'll ask the official of Jingzhou Mansion to come as collateral and sign a contract. You have the silver ready. I know that this large amount of silver will take time to raise. It's okay, it's not urgent." Wang Jinyuan breathed a sigh of relief and awkwardly smiled, saying, "Young master, you are really rare. Rare." He, who had always been smooth, realized that he had searched his heart and couldn't find a good word. Finally, he managed to come up with a description. "You are a rare and charming person." Fang Jifan smiled and played with the xiangfei fan in his hand, but he sighed in his heart. He realized that this spendthrift had settled down, so let's just be a spendthrift. If it weren't for the spendthrift, selling his family business would have been a bit of a moral burden. Now that he's doing well, he finds himself feeling very relaxed. After seeing off Wang Jinyuan, the steward, accountant, and Deng Jian all knelt down in the hall one by one and began mourning. "Young master, think twice. The young master's illness is only about to recover, and we are overjoyed, but..." Fang Jifan sighed in his heart, but he felt a bit sympathetic towards them. These people were really for his own good, and he shouldn't have surprised them like this. But just as he aroused sympathy, he saw the doctor who had injected needles exploring outside. When Fang Jifan saw Dr. Goatbeard, his heart was filled with panic. He slapped the desk paper and shouted at him sternly, "What are you looking at?" The doctor smiled awkwardly and said, "The student thought." The young master had just recovered from his serious illness and was afraid that his illness would recur, so he decided. Fang Jifan felt a bit of pain in his head, and the memory of being pricked in the back of his head surged in his heart. He took a deep breath, "MLGB. This is because he sincerely doesn't want me to be a good person." Without hesitation, he picked up the Xiang Fei fan and threw it at the doctor. This time, it hit the doctor's forehead without bias. The doctor felt some pain when he touched it, and then tears pattered down. Fang Jifan was taken aback in his heart. He just casually smashed it, showing that he was normal. He felt embarrassed again and couldn't help but say, "Why are you crying?" The doctor wiped away his tears and sighed with emotion, "There's no need to see the young master today. He has recovered very well from his illness, very well. I am grateful for the kindness of my uncle and have been taken in by him in the mansion. I have received many blessings in my daily life, but now that I can cure the young master, I am truly fortunate. Good, 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 God has eyes, and the ancestors of the Fang family have virtue." Fang Jifan's eyes were all straight. He thought to himself, the ancestors of the Fang family really need to have spirits. Tonight, he might have to strangle you, the Mongolian doctor. The young master of the Fang family's illness has recovered, and now it has become a topic of great interest among his neighbors. The slanted door is a tavern, and the owner of the tavern is holding an abacus bead. Apart from hitting the abacus bead every day, he is always happy to talk to the drinkers about this matter. It's really good, there's absolutely no falsehood. Dr. Zheng is really skilled at reviving things. Seriously, is what I said still false? Don't believe it. Alright, I'll tell you. Yesterday, Wang Dong's family from the dental shop came knocking on their door. Guess what? The young master of the Fang family wants to sell land, not just land, but all the valuable things in the family. Isn't this something that our young master of the Fang family can do? You don't know, early in the morning, I saw the clerks of the Jingzhou mansion follow Wang Dong's family to the Fang family for security. It said that they have already signed their names. Young Master Fang is very happy. As they left, Mr. Fang personally escorted them out, waved at them, and shouted loudly, "What else do you want next time? Remember where to visit." The festive atmosphere scared Wang Dong's family and Bao Ren instead. The usually thick-skinned Wang Dong's family felt ashamed, as if they had no face to see anyone. Feeling very guilty, the drinkers were amazed when they heard this, and some who knew the inside story quickly nodded and said, "That's right. I'm sure it's fine. Dr. Zheng is a divine doctor. Isn't that right?" Dr. Zheng is now proud, and when entering and leaving the Fang mansion, he always carries a cool aura. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. A kind father defeats many children. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. A kind father defeats many children. Fang Jifan didn't care at all about the rumors and gossip outside. He was busy calculating the accounts now. After a few days, Wang Jinyuan started inviting people to come and move. Manager Yang burst into tears again, almost losing his temper. Deng Jian, on the other hand, followed behind Fang Jifan with a pitiful expression. Fang Jifan was very polite to the people recruited by Wang Jinyuan, saying, "Big brothers, please lift it slowly, be careful. This is a treasure passed down from our Fang family. Although we have changed our surname now, it still has emotions. This porcelain vase needs to be more careful. It is a bottle passed down from Ru Kiln, which was passed down from my ancestors. There was a bump, and my conscience is uneasy. Come, little Deng, pour a sip of water for all the big brothers. It's a guest from afar, so don't neglect it." Deng Jian rolled his eyes and directly spat out 2 words. "No, there isn't." Fang Jifan knew he was being mischievous. In the past 2 days, Deng Jian had been looking at him with a complex gaze. He had intended to forget about it and not argue with this scumbag, but he thought to himself that if he did, it wouldn't be Fang Jifan anymore. Can the defeated members of the Fang family forget about their work? Be careful. I haven't had any injections in the past few days, so don't expose your horse's feet. So his face changed and he shouted angrily, "What's nothing like a dog? All the tea sets have been sold." Deng Jian was indeed a bit afraid of Fang Jifan and softened. Fang Jifan suddenly realized that he was selling to the fullest at that time. If ebony skyrocketed, it would be several times the profit. Under the influence of profit, for the sake of silver, Fang Jifan sold everything he should have sold. In fact, even if the price of ebony doesn't skyrocket, it's not a big deal. After all, ebony is rare in this era and won't lose money. Tell me earlier, you and Lu Zhangfang will go out and buy some household items later. You need to save some money, buy as cheap as possible. Young master needs to save money and do big things. Deng Jian cried, tears streaming down his face. He knelt at Fang Jifan's feet and said, "Young master, could you change your hobby and go to brothels, gambling houses, wherever you go? Don't do big things. Fang Jifan sighed in his heart, if he doesn't do big things, will he be nurtured as a waste by people from all over you? He felt helpless in his heart, but he carried his hands behind his back and whistled loudly, stop talking and break your leg. For over 10,000 taels of silver, all the ebony was purchased, and even the ebony on the market was sold out. This was a major event that shook the capital. Fortunately, everyone had long been accustomed to the behavior of the black sheep of the Fang family, and besides mocking them as a topic of discussion, they quickly put aside such absurd behavior. Fang Jifan caused the Fang family's chickens and dogs to jump around, and it had been a full month. At this time, in the scorching summer, the weather became hot and dry, and the Xiang Fei fan finally came into use. There was no need to fan the cold wind in a cold day and pretend to be very elegant and graceful. In fact, this behavior was purely a joke in Fang Jifan's eyes, but there was no way. He was Fang Jifan. In the early morning of that day, Shao Xiangxiang hurriedly came in, while Deng Jian shouted loudly, young master, wake up quickly. Wake up quickly. Fang Jifan raised his eyes slightly and saw that the sky outside was still dim. He immediately became angry and said, what do you mean by this early morning? You took the wrong medicine. Is there anyone who woke up so early in the morning? Deng Jian was so anxious that he stomped his foot and said, Uncle. Uncle. Return triumphantly. The personal soldiers who had just followed Uncle on the expedition quickly reported a letter, saying that Uncle had already entered the city and was about to arrive home in the blink of an eye. He should have gone to the palace to meet him, but he remembered the young master in his heart. Let's go home first and take a look. Young master, wake up quickly. Father. Has he returned? Fang Jifan shuddered. Didn't you say you didn't come back so soon? This trip is to suppress the rebellion of the chieftains in Yunnan. There is a lot of miasma there, and the barbarians are cunning. They are unwilling to easily engage in a decisive battle with the court. It should be postponed until the end of the year, but it is only summer now. Fang Jifan had a faint feeling of wanting to finish. He pretended not to be in a hurry and calmly said, oh, undress, you have to welcome my dad. When my father spoke 2 words, he saw Deng Jian suddenly looking at him with alertness. Fang Jifan felt a thump in his heart. What was going on and what went wrong again? Deng Jian squinted his eyes and seemed to feel that Fang Jifan's illness had recurred. He couldn't help but mutter, young master has never called uncle to be his father. Animal. Fang Jifan cursed loudly in his heart, is this person still human? It's better to be a pig or a dog, not even to recognize his father. He could only cough and say, young master has grown up, can't you be more sensible? If the young master hasn't finished speaking, dare you interrupt? Humph, what I said is that I have to go meet my father, that old guy. Deng Jian suddenly smiled happily and breathed a sigh of relief, saying, that's right. I was scared to death just now, and I'm really afraid that the young master's illness may not be completely cured. Manager Yang has already written a letter to congratulate Uncle. If Uncle returns and finds out that the young master's illness is not completely cured, he will definitely punish him. Now that I see that the young master is as good as before, I feel in my heart. At this point, he choked up and wept with joy. However, Fang Jifan's heart was in turmoil. He let Xiaoxiangxiang take care of him to dress, and when everything was done, he saw Xiaoxiangxiang hanging her head and blushing as she looked at the tips of her embroidered shoes. Fang Jifan suddenly realized that she had almost forgotten and showed a sneaky look. Xiaoxiangxiang, you have grown up again. The sound of firecrackers could be heard outside, so Fang Jifan ran out of the room like he had fled and arrived at the middle gate of the Fang family. He saw a brave man dressed as a military officer who had just dismounted, and Yang, the steward, led a dozen servants in a row. The military officer, with a tiger's back and a bear's waist, appeared very fierce. He had a square face and a square mouth, but in contrast to the handsome young man like Fang Jifan, He was somewhat distinct. I don't think I was born to old Wang next door, do I? Fang Jifan secretly stuck out his tongue in his heart. Fang's father called him Fang Longjing, with a look of solemnity on his face. He looked around with a murderous aura, but when he saw Fang Jifan, his sharp gaze melted instantly. He took 3 or 2 steps forward and supported Fang Jifan, saying, "Jifan, you have a brain disease. As a father in southern Xinjiang, your heart is burning with anxiety. However, due to the war, you cannot escape. As a last resort, you are greedy for achievements and rushed forward. Finally, God bless you and pacify the barbarians early. Only then did you rush back. Along the way, I found out that you have recovered from your illness. It's really the blessing of our ancestors. It turned out that it was because of his own illness that my father took the risk of using force urgently. No wonder he came back so early." Fang Jifan suddenly felt a strong sense of fatherly love, and his heart melted. He looked up at the stranger, but with a touch, he said, "Dad." As soon as the word "Dad" was spoken, a hint of suspicion flashed across Fang Longjing's face. The steward Yang, the doctor, and the Dr. Fang all showed signs of astonishment on the side. Fang Jifan could only grit his heart and burst out laughing. "You old man finally came back." "Ha!" Fang Jinglong burst out laughing, his suspicion dispelling. "Where is my son from Lao Fang suffering from a brain disease? Isn't that normal? Just like before." He patted Fang Jifan's shoulder and said, "Good son, let's go inside and talk. Since you're well, haven't you done anything bad?" Listening to his teasing and relaxed tone, it seemed that even if he did something bad, it was not a big deal. "Indeed, I know that my son is like a father. No wonder Fang Jifan is a spendthrift. With such indulgence, any kind of son must be disabled." Fang Jifan sighed in his heart and said, "What can my son do? He just sold some of his land." Fang Jinglong still laughed and said, "It's just selling land. Huh, selling a few dozen acres is not a big deal. Just sell it casually. If you don't have any money, just tell Dad, where will we go from now on?" When Fang Jinglong said this, he suddenly felt that the steward Yang beside him looked like a dead mother, and his heart suddenly pounded. "Are you selling dozens of acres? Thousands of acres?" Fang Jifan said, "To be precise, it's over 2,000 acres. 2,000. Over 2 acres. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Ancestors and Ancestors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Ancestors and Ancestors. Fang Jinglong's imposing face was momentarily bewildered, as if shrouded in dark clouds. He eagerly said, "Isn't it all sold? All sold?" The soldier with a tiger's back and a bear's waist suddenly burst into tears at the corner of his eyes. Suddenly, he knelt down on the ground with a thud and screamed, "Children and grandchildren are not worth it, I feel guilty to my ancestors." Fang Jinglong wept bitterly, but kept kowtowing and self-blaming on the ground. Yang, the steward beside him, quickly helped up Fang Jinglong, who was heartbroken. Fang Jinglong let out a long sigh and angrily said to manager Yang, "Young master wants to sell land. Why don't you study and discuss with me? Why just indulge him like this?" Yang, the steward, said wrongly, "The master has gone to the south, and the young master is the head of the family. The students can't stop him. Besides, the master has already said that as long as the young master is happy, everything is easy to say. When the master came to study, he even said that the top priority was to treat the young master's illness. This is a brain disease, and we must not stimulate the young master, so everything should be followed." "Ah!" Fang Jinglong let out a long sigh, but remained speechless. He then continued walking towards the hall, and Fang Jifan licked his tongue, like a child who had made a mistake. He slowly caught up, but he really wanted to comfort his father, but didn't know how to speak out. When he arrived in the hall, Fang Jinglong was waiting for instructions. Pour tea. You can look around. The mahogany official hat and chair in this hall have disappeared, and the coffee table and calligraphy and painting on the wall have also disappeared. Even the lamp rack has disappeared without a trace. Placed here it's a willow table, which looks half old at first glance, and two long benches. A bench. The main hall of Nanha Bo Mansion is so grand, and this lonely bench gives a particularly dazzling feeling. Fang Jinglong's eyes were straight, but a obedient servant had already poured tea. However, he was not using a white porcelain tea cup, but a large bowl, with obvious cracks on the ceramic bowl. Of course, this is not old, but because of the cracks unique to inferior pottery after firing. Fang Jinglong felt a bit dark in front of him and instinctively said, tables and chairs. Surprisingly, were they also sold? Manager Yang said as if Nyang had died. Sell. Sell. Fang Jinglong was busy supporting his body with his hands. As his body shook, he finally regained his composure. Suddenly, his anger filled his heart, and his veins bulging on his forehead. He raised his hand and fiercely attacked Fang Jifan in the face. This huge slap made a half-arc in mid-air. Fang Jifan instinctively closed his eyes and said to himself, "It's over, let's fight." Such a scumbag and a spendthrift, in fact, to be fair, he would love to slap himself in the mirror every day. But when this palm was about to reach Fang Jifan's cheek, it suddenly froze. Fang Jinglong's angry face suddenly lost its color, like a defeated rooster, with tears in his eyes. He sighed and said, "Jifan, when your mother died, I reminded her to treat you well. Over the years, my father dared not renew his marriage, dared not take concubines, and was afraid of apologizing to your deceased mother. You. Like this. Cough cough cough." He coughed desperately, covering his own heart and choking, "It's my father's fault, it's all my father's. It's my fault. You haven't had a mother since you were young. If you don't talk, as long as you have no disasters or illnesses, you'll be fine." He gave a bitter smile, just shook his head. Suddenly, he seemed to remember something, and his face suddenly became nervous again. He couldn't help but say, "Baby. Is the baby still here?" As he spoke, he rushed towards the study like a sharp arrow on the string. His treasures, including the bottles and jars collected in the study, as well as some ancestral treasures, made him pant as he arrived at the study, his eyes fixed on the direction where the antique shelf was placed. But who knew that not only did the things on the bogus shelf disappear, but even the bogus shelf disappeared. Fang Jifan, Yang Guanshi, and others hurriedly chased after him, only to see Fang Jinglong pounding his chest and falling, and howling loudly, shaking the rubble, saying, "Oh my God! What kind of person am I doing? Uncle, calm down." Manager Yang was about to step forward. "Ancestors." Fang Jinglong raised his hands to the sky and roared, "Children and grandchildren are not worth it." Fang Jinglong's eyes were already dark, and he fell down in a muffled voice. Fang Jifan's face turned pale with fear. Isn't his father a general? Poor stress resistance. He helped Fang Jinglong up, and behind him came the voice of crying for his father and calling for his mother. No good, uncle has fainted. Please call for a doctor, please. The Fang family has already jumped up and made a mess. Fang Jifan took a deep breath and felt guilty when he saw everyone feeling at a loss. However, he had to muster up his energy and said with great confidence, "Steward Yang, please personally go and invite the doctor, Deng Jian, to fetch a towel and get it wet." Fang Jifan tried Fang Jinglong's breathing, and fortunately, his breath was still smooth. Although his pulse was weak, there was no disturbance, so he breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. This damn spendthrift. I don't know if Fang Jifan is cursing that guy from the past, or himself. It's also good that everyone in the current mansion is in chaos and hasn't noticed anything unusual about this young Master Fang. The warm pavilion of the Forbidden City. Emperor Hongji has been feeling unwell recently, but he has always been diligent. Even if he is feeling unwell, he still dares not neglect government affairs. Not long ago, someone came to report that it was the Nanhabuofang Jinglongping Southwest Tusi rebellion that triumphed and returned to court. They had already entered the capital and would soon be attending the palace. Emperor Hongji's face immediately turned red and he was overjoyed. He leaned against a soft cushion and, while summoning Nanhe Bo, held a piece of debate against conscience in his hand, while Crown Prince Zhu Hozhao stood cautiously by, with a look of pig liver on his face. Zhu Hozhao is the only son of Emperor Hongji, who dotes on him greatly. Looking at the young crown prince in front of him, Hongji's eyes are full of kindness. I heard that recently, the masters have taught you the debate against conscience, which was written by Su Sun. Although this article may seem a bit harsh, it also has its strengths. Have you all read it well? Familiar. Familiar with reading. Zhu Hozhao lowered his eyebrows and didn't dare to look up at Hongji. If that's the case, then let me hear it behind my back, said Hongji with a smile, feeling really afraid of what to do. Zhu Hozhao's slippery eyes were instantly congested, and he was busy hooking his boots under his feet with his eyes. He stuttered and said, Things must. Come, reason. Reason. After sorting for a long time, I can't carry on anymore. Hongji leaned slightly and said with a hint of displeasure, after reading for half a month, you only memorized these 5 words. The masters of the Zhanche mansion taught you carefully, but you didn't listen to a single word. Zhu Hozhao shrugged his head and said, I understand my mistake. Hongji frowned with a stern expression and said, you are the crown prince. In the future, you will conquer the great unification. If you don't study, how can you understand the truth, and govern the world? Zhu Hozhao trembled and said, My lord. My lord. Seeing Zhu Hozhao's frightened expression, Emperor Hongji's heart softened and his stern gaze melted. He sighed and said, Oh, you have been spoiled by your mother. You can't do this in the future. You must study hard. Zhu Hozhao's eyes flashed with a cunning expression. In the past, whenever his father taught him a lesson and showed a fearful expression, his father would always soften his heart. Today, he is no exception and quickly said, I have taken note of it. Emperor Hongji smiled bitterly and shook his head, you. Wanting to curse a few words, but unable to speak, he simply said to the eunuchs on both sides, Isn't Uncle Nanhe in Beijing? Why hasn't he been seen yet? I've been waiting here all this time. Go to the Ministry of Communications to urge him. Yes. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Shangda Tianting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Shangda Tianting. The eunuch received the order and hurriedly left. Before long, the eunuch returned and said, Your Majesty, it's not good. It's not good. The Minister of Communications sent someone to the Fang family to inquire and said it was Nanhe Bo who fainted. Sitting on the side, Zhu Hozhao lowered his head as if reflecting. When he heard someone faint, his spirit trembled, and his eyes sparkled. But when his gaze touched his father, he quickly lowered his head as if he had made a mistake. Emperor Hongji exclaimed in surprise, Has he fainted in the past? He is a middle-aged man and a brave general. He has just returned victorious. What exactly happened? The eunuch said with a wry smile, It is said that he was enraged by his son. Nanhe Bo was fighting outside, but his son Fang Jifan sold all the land of the Fang family. Not only that, but he also sold all the bottles, jars in the house. Your Majesty, this is a young man selling his own land. According to ordinary people's families, he is a spendthrift. Not only that, he also bought ebony with all the silver he received. Nanhe Bo was extremely angry when he heard this bad news, and even heard that he not only sold his ancestral property, but also his ancestral Emperor Hongji couldn't help but say, how could there be such a person? The eunuch was afraid that His Majesty would not believe him and said, Your Majesty knows something. Prince Fang Jifan, the son of Nanhabo, was already a notorious spendthrift in the capital. Since childhood, he refused to read and spent his days idle, eating, drinking, soliciting and gambling. He was proficient in everything and had already spread his reputation. He was the only son of Nanhabo, and Nanhabo Li came to spoil him, so he had no worries. Everyone in the capital knew about him. Emperor Hongji frowned and said, Such wickedness, unheard of, is truly pitiful to Nanhabo. He fought outside and made great contributions to the court, but the backyard caught fire. At the beginning of his life, his nature was inherently good. This is the result of excessive indulgence. Send orders. Emperor Hongji stood up tall and took 2 steps in the warm pavilion, pondering, appointing the imperial physician to treat Nanhabo, and his son Fang Jifan, who is ignorant and behaves recklessly. The emperor was obviously angry, with a murderous aura on his face. Just as he was about to punish him severely, he thought about it and sighed, It's okay, my son did not teach me, my father's fault. Nanhabuishin has made military achievements, and now he has suffered this calamity again. If he were to punish his son again, it would actually make him uneasy. The review is coming, so let this son participate in the review. The eunuch quickly responded and hesitated for a moment. In previous years, even the successors of this side refused to go to school. Emperor Hongji immediately pulled down his face and said, Even if it's binding, we have to tie it up. Zhu Hozhao, who was standing by, chuckled and almost couldn't help but gloat. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Zhu Hozhao saw his father's gaze shoot like a sword. He looked up in astonishment, intertwined with his father's eyes, and saw that there was a hint of killing intent in this supposed loving gaze. Zhu Hozhao suddenly felt like a light on his back and was about to start pretending to be pitiful, but to his surprise, Emperor Hongji sternly said, You are the crown prince. Can the crown prince neglect his studies? After reading the debate on treachery for so long, he couldn't recite it. How can he live up to his ancestors? Zhu Hozhao quickly squeezed out tears and sobbed, Yes, yes, I dare not. But today, he found that his father had become heartless. Faced with his tears, he still remained calm and shouted sternly, I usually spoil you too much. If I continue to indulge you today, you will not even be as good as the young children of the Fang family in the future. He lost his ancestral inheritance, but when I die in the future, you will lose the country and land. You are no longer young, and you are so ignorant. How can I be at ease? Within 3 days, I will copy the debate on conscience 20 times. I will personally verify it. If you cheat or play tricks, I will not spare you. Zhu Hozhao had never seen his father become so angry before. When he heard that he was going to copy the debate against conscience 20 times, his heart was cut to pieces. He quickly nodded and pounded garlic, saying, I will obey your orders. Emperor Hongji's face softened slightly, but he still pulled his face and said, Let's go study at the Zhanche mansion. Don't be a hindrance here. After pondering, Zhu Hozhao finally regained his flavor. Mr. Fang, are you deceiving others? Do you still have a good life in the future? The imperial physician arrived at the Fang family, but in fact, Fang Jinglong was just startled and fainted. He quickly woke up, but his eyes were a bit dull. Thinking that his family was empty, he bought a pile of ebony, which was piled up in the backyard. This general who was fighting for the south suddenly became lethargic. Shame on me, I've lost all my face. Selling my land like a child is shameless. Surprisingly, even His Majesty already knew and even sent an imperial physician. Fang Jinglong is not a person with too thin skin, but every time he thinks about it, he wants to find a crack in the ground to get in. During the meal, the 2 fathers each sat on long benches. Fang Jifan was afraid that Fang Jinglong would hit him, so he deliberately moved some distance. As for the food, it was not much better. Deng Jian, standing beside him, was also very careful. Fang Jifan's heart was in turmoil, and he felt quite conflicted. He could only sigh inwardly. Don't worry, when the price of ebony skyrocketed, he would definitely redeem all his land. No, he wanted to buy the best. Upon hearing the commotion, Fang Jifan was startled. He still had green vegetable leaves in his mouth, and his handsome face turned white in an instant. He thought his father had gone crazy and wanted to beat someone up. Looking up, he saw that Fang Jinglong had originally slapped his chopsticks on the willow table, then looked up. His nose was slightly red and sour, and his eyes were slightly moist. He sighed and said, "I'm sorry, ancestors." "Dad." Fang Jifan cautiously probed, "Don't keep mentioning your ancestors." He shrank his neck and said, "I always feel the wind blowing." Fang Jinglong gave him a glare and then turned to Deng Jian. Deng Jian was also surprised and said, "Young master, you're calling me dad again. Aren't you?" Fang Jifan wished he could tear up Deng Jian, his grandson. "What's wrong with my name being dad? He's my dad. But upon careful consideration, it's just that I really don't want to be taken by the doctor to study again." At this point, becoming a spendthrift has become an instinct, and one cannot forget their roots in life. He gritted his teeth and said, "Old man, why don't you let anyone eat?" Fang Jinglong wanted to say something. He pursed his lips and looked at his son, who had melted again. He couldn't help but kindly say, "Ji Fan, you always haven't grown up. Our Fang family has been blessed by our ancestors, and you haven't loved reading or practicing martial arts since childhood. What others think of me as my father doesn't care at all. But sometimes, when I see the children of other nobles and uncles attending school reviews, I have some envy in my father's heart. This year's school review period has arrived, and when I returned to Beijing, I was still thinking that it would be great if Ji Fan could go and try his luck. Who knew that when I came back, I would see you sell your ancestral property? At this point, as a father, I no longer have such hope. Now, I only hope that your illness will recover greatly, and you will not relapse. You will live a peaceful life and will be honored. Even if you are not sent, it doesn't matter. The so-called proofreading is not true proofreading. Almost all the aristocratic children of the Ming Dynasty had to work as attendants, which has been a rule since Emperor Taizu. After all, although the title of the Ming Dynasty was hereditary and could not be replaced, the salary was not high. For example, Fang Jinglong received 3 salaries, one from the Earl of Nanhe, and one from his current position. For example, he is currently serving in the military as the deputy commander of the 5th Army Commander's Office, and the other was for military achievements. When he returns from his southern expedition, he will definitely receive rewards. If you don't participate in the school review, you won't have any assignments and can only rely on the salary of the title to make a living. The most important thing for the aristocratic children is this. Almost all the aristocratic children in the capital who have some achievements can either serve in the 26th Guards of the Imperial Army, in the Zhongling Mansion, or in the 5th Army Commander's Mansion, but like Fang Jifan, they can only eat idle food for a lifetime. To be dispatched, one must pass the examination, which is the examination of the nobility. Here's to say, during the new book period, there will be 2 updates every day, as it is written about the Ming Dynasty, so the updates will be relatively fast. After it is released, there will be updates of 15,000 to 18,000 every day. If the 2,000-word update is from 7th to 8th, and the 3,000-word update is from 5th to 6th, it is roughly like this. Please support the new book period. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Brother wants to soar to the sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Brother wants to soar to the sky. Although Fang Jinglong knew that his son was a worm, he occasionally had thoughts of wanting his son to become a dragon. Now he couldn't help but feel a sigh of emotion and shook his head, feeling that he was really having an unrealistic idea. Fang Jifan dare not say that I am going to proofread. The black sheep from the past would never have gone to take the exam, so he avoided Fang Jinglong's self-deprecating gaze. However, he was thinking to himself, I really should give this proofreading a try, but his situation is special. How can he logically and without suspicion take the exam? Seeing that Fang Jifan remained silent, Fang Jinglong thought his words had made his son unhappy. He said, okay. As a father, I won't say anything. As a father, I know you don't like to go on errands or be constrained by others. I won't mention it again in the future. He waved his hand, feeling very melancholy. He thought of the children who were also nobles and uncles, all proud of proofreading, and then looked at his own son. Ah! Ancestors, but when he thought of his ancestors, Fang Jinglong felt a bit of pain in his heart. But Fang Jifan was anxious in his heart. Dad, I have to work as a clerk, I have to go to school, and I don't want to be a lifelong waste. Why didn't you say that? You can trample on me, then you can't be tough. Just slap the table, put me on a tiger stool, drip candle oil, even if you tie me up, you have to give me a chance to go on a job. Of course, these words are hard to say. It seems that the whole world has recognized him as a reckless young master who is only willing to play tricks on his father. If he suddenly becomes ambitious, it would be suspicious, especially if he suffers from a brain disease. Fang Jifan sighed in his heart, even more melancholic than Fang Jinglong. But the next day, Deng Jian's voice sounded like a gong again. Young master, someone has arrived in the palace. Please order the young master to go and review. Fang Jifan was still in a hazy state, but upon hearing this, he suddenly flipped over and climbed up. In the palace. What does this mean? But Deng Jian ran towards him panting and said, a eunuch came to the palace and said to be reviewing today. Upon hearing this, Your Majesty was overjoyed by Long Yan's proposal to select talented individuals to join the imperial army. However, for some reason, he remembered the young master and said to his left and right, isn't the son of Nanha uncle always reckless? This is because his family education is not strict, and he will also review it. If he doesn't go, he will be punished for his disrespect. Fang Jifan's heart was filled with surprise and joy. This emperor is quite interesting. No, what does it mean to have a lax family education and be unrestrained? Has the reputation of our brothers already spread to the ears of the emperor? Fang Jifan was heartbroken but dared not reveal it. Deng Jian became anxious and said, the imperial envoy in the palace has arrived at the main hall. We are waiting for the young master to go. The old master went to the 5 army commanders' mansion early in the morning to work. The young master needs to go quickly, otherwise he will neglect the imperial envoy. All right, that's all you have to say. Fang Jifan said impatiently, Xiao Xiangxiang, come and get dressed. Deng Jian said with a worried expression, Xiang'er is sick today. I'll go and ask Lan'er to come. Fang Jifan breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He had been forced to play liumang for years, which was very difficult for his honest and pure self. Therefore, he deliberately showed impatience and said, I will come by myself. Lan'er's xiong is small, and I would rather touch myself. Deng Jian looked at the young master with a relieved expression on his face. The young master did not change his true colors, and it seemed that his illness was getting better and better. Fang Jifan quickly put on his clothes, with the school review in his mind and full of anticipation. His buddies wanted to make a big splash and soar to the sky. Let everyone know that this young master is not only intelligent and handsome, but also talented. Hurriedly arriving at the main hall, I saw a white-faced eunuch holding hands behind his back, looking disdainfully at the main hall of the Fang family. I had heard that this spendthrift had sold all his fields and belongings. Looking at the several long benches in this hall, the eunuch even felt that he had a new understanding of the 4 characters, family is nothing but a wall. As Fang Jifan saw Deng Jian approaching, he immediately put on a smile. Eunuchs, they are living eunuchs. With Fang Jifan's understanding of eunuchs, none of these eunuchs who are always by the emperor's side are efficient lamps. Although their status is humble, they also have incredible strength. The eunuch looked at him with a smile on his face. Fang Jifan quickly bowed, and politely said, I have seen my father. Law. He has come from a long distance and was not able to greet me from afar. I hope you can forgive me. As Fang Jifan spoke, he made a gesture of taking money out of his arms and had to give him some tea and water fees. Although he pretended to be a spendthrift every day, in reality, Fang Jifan understood the hidden rules. The young eunuch's heart was like a mirror, but he suddenly pulled down his face and said with a hint of displeasure, Young Master Fang, let's get rid of it. Yes, just a little bit. Fang Jifan had already pulled out a piece of silver. The young eunuch, however, still had a cold face and said with a smile on his face, Of course we dare to ask for someone else's silver, but Fang Gongzi's silver, he. We really don't have the courage to accept it. Fang Gongzi, did you forget that last year, we came to announce the decree, and you scolded us in front of our face, so. You can't be treated as a young master's gift. Fang Jifan never expected that this eunuch had such a level of conflict with the former spendthrift. As a eunuch, the most hated thing he feared was being criticized for his flaws. Oh, this damn spendthrift. At this moment, the eunuch was surmised and laughed even colder. He continued, We couldn't do anything to the young master back then, but now that we have entered the imperial censorate, from time to time, we have to go and serve the emperor. In the future, the young master Fang must be careful. Fang Jifan was well versed in the history of the Ming Dynasty. As soon as he heard about the eunuch Du Zhijian, he knew why this young eunuch was so arrogant. In terms of power, among the 12 eunuch institutions in the palace, of course, the eunuchs of the Imperial Household Department and the Imperial Horse Department were the most influential. However, the eunuch Du Zhijian was also a good place for young eunuchs, as his duty was to follow the emperor and guide the path. The people who accompanied the emperor every day were the objects of flattery both inside and outside the palace, becoming a coveted object. At this moment, Deng Jian had already caught up, but he dared not enter the room and only explored outside. When Fang Jifan saw Deng Jianlai, he felt a bit regretful in his heart. At this time, as a spendthrift, repairing the relationship was no longer possible. And judging from this situation, it may be difficult to repair this relationship. Although he is the crown prince of Nanhabo, this eunuch cannot do anything to him. He is afraid that there may be some unexpected changes in his family, and he cannot prevent people from falling into trouble. He gave a dry laugh and said, My father-in-law is here, I wonder what you're doing. The young eunuch said coldly, As your majesty has instructed, today I will review it at the imperial palace. Please go to the imperial palace, young master. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. 5 Flowers and Bounds. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. 5 Flowers and Bounds. Fang Jifan was extremely excited in his heart, but when he saw Deng Jian still there, he smiled and regained his true nature as a spendthrift. Your Majesty's great kindness is just. Just what? The young eunuch spoke with righteousness, but the other side's successor, Ji Fan, didn't show any signs of goodwill. We naturally know that the young master of the Fang family will never go. We have also heard that 2 years ago, your father Nanhabo wanted someone to lift you up, and you refused to do anything. But our ugly words were spoken earlier, and we came by order. Even if we were to tie you up, we would still tie you up. His gaze fixed on Fang Jifan like a venomous snake, seeming to not dispel his hatred. He lowered his voice and continued, Don't you think that your Fang family is an earl, but in our eyes, what is it? Do you think your father, relying on his sword and spear, won't worry? To be honest, what does your majesty think of you as a father and son? You still have to rely on the people around you. In this palace, who is closest to your majesty? Hey! Fang Jifan knew that this young eunuch had achieved great success and was about to show off his authority and threaten himself. He sighed and said, "If you don't go, you will be bound. Are you still unreasonable? Then you can give it a try." The young eunuch squinted his eyes and glared fiercely at Fang Jifan, as if we had a grudge. He looked like we had formed a feud and would wait and see. "Your surname Fang, you deserve to reason with us too." But Fang Jifan smiled, with a flash of light in his eyes. He then walked slowly to the willow table, which was filled with several teacups and teapots. He took an empty set of teacups and played with them in his hand. The eunuch became impatient and said, "Young Master Fang, how long will you continue to procrastinate?" Fang Jifan gave him a strange smile. The defeated family suddenly gave the young eunuch a gentle and elegant appearance like a jade. The young eunuch thought it was an illusion and was dazed for a moment. Sure enough, his gentle appearance disappeared without a trace, replaced by a malicious expression on his face. He saw a cold gleam in Fang Jifan's eyes, and then the teacup in his hand took off and flew straight to the young eunuch's forehead. Pop! The teacup was fiercely smashed by Fang Jifan, hitting the little eunuch's forehead. The eunuch let out a loud scream, and immediately a crimson blood flowed out of his forehead. The little eunuch's mind buzzed, and he was completely stunned. "Crazy, crazy." The young eunuch gritted his teeth and roared fiercely, "Mr. Fang, how dare you beat the imperial envoy, how brave you are. What are you trying to do? You." He covered his forehead and shouted loudly. But Fang Jifan smiled at him with a nonchalant expression, took out the xiangfei fan, slowly fanned, and then said word by word, "Our Jifan doesn't believe it. You have the courage to bind me." The eunuch was completely bewildered. Provoking, this is a blatant provocation. There were already blood blisters on his forehead, and the little eunuch's face twisted with pain. Moreover, most importantly, Fang Jifan dared to say that he had no seed. The last time he scolded himself for having no eggs, this time he roared fiercely, "We dare not bind you. You said we dare not bind you. If we dare not bind you, then write this surname upside down." He touched his forehead and gritted his teeth in pain. This guy was really ruthless when he touched it, to the point where the teacup shattered and there were broken pieces of porcelain embedded in the skin and flesh on his forehead. His hand touching his forehead was soaked in blood, and he let out a roar. Someone, tie him up, tie him up." There was a young eunuch outside who brought his own army to work together. Seeing this battle, he dared not hesitate and rushed in without saying a word. He took the rope and restrained Fang Jifan. The young eunuch still hasn't cleared his grudge. He knows in his heart that if something like this happens during his official duties, he can certainly go back to the palace to report it. However, for His Majesty, Fang Jifan is certainly guilty. As for himself, he can't handle such a small matter, and his future is likely to be ruined. So we can't go back to the palace to complain, so we have to kidnap someone. Didn't your Jifan say we don't have any seeds, so we have seeds to show you? He took the rope and, taking advantage of the efforts of two loyal soldiers to subdue Fang Jifan, tied Fang Jifan tightly, only then did he feel relieved of his hatred. Fang Jifan was actually honest and allowed him to tie him up. When this little eunuch tied Fang Jifan up, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. The eunuch is indeed a eunuch, tie a rope, and your sister will tie a bow. The eunuch seemed to take a deep breath and ordered someone to escort Fang Jifan to the prince's mansion. This so-called Pro-Army Commander's office is different from the 5 Army Commander's office. It is claimed to have jurisdiction over the Pro-Army's 26 guards and is a member of the Forbidden Army. However, the commander's office is only a facade and its main responsibility is to coordinate the 26 guards, and of course, it is also responsible for proofreading. Many meritorious children have come today, and these young men are all energetic and eager to try. They are all aristocratic children of the Ming Dynasty, who have been living a luxurious life since childhood. However, I am a hero and a hero. Everyone hopes that not only will they inherit the titles of their father's generation, but they will also receive the favor of the palace and be sent to the palace. The chief examiner appointed by Emperor Hongji was the Duke of England, Zhang Mao. This elderly Duke of England looked at the young and talented people in the hall, but he always comforted them. Many of them were old acquaintances, and Zhang Mao had high hopes for them. There were over 500 children who were reviewing, divided into 6 examination rooms. He reviewed them one by one, and when he arrived at the last examination room, wearing a python robe, he stopped and looked particularly refreshed. He then said to the candidates, "You are all noble and have received the favor and shade of your ancestors. Today's review will be divided into 3, 6, and 9 classes, in order to select talents. Those who are outstanding will be like your ancestors, and they will go on a campaign from above, serve in the military, and show their skills to fight for your ancestors. They will get a golden belt." Everyone said one after another, "Yes." After Zhang Mao finished speaking, he laughed heartily. This golden belt had a story behind it. The rules for proofreading began with Emperor Taizu Gao, who initially called it reading cavalry. The original British Duke Zhang Mao was in his youth when Emperor Qinghua was reading cavalry in the West Garden. Zhang Mao fired 3 arrows in a row and was awarded the golden belt. This golden belt is still tied around Zhang Mao's waist. Although he holds a high position as a minister, inheriting the title of duke and also worshipping as a grand tutor, wearing any belt is not considered a symbol of honor. However, in his heart, this golden belt is the symbol of honor. The meritorious children greedily looked at the belt tied by Zhang Mao, rubbing their hands and eager to try. Just as he was speaking, there was a commotion coming from outside. Zhang Mao frowned slightly, and the several military officers on his left and right were also extremely surprised. Someone saw Zhang Mao's displeasure on his face and quickly said, "I'll go down and take a look." Zhang Mao's face turned cold and said, "No matter who is making noise, today's review is a big matter. Bring someone here." When everyone saw the Duke of England angry, they were all trembling with fear. Soon, they saw someone bound up in various ways and brought by 2 personal soldiers. Zhang Mao saw that the person who had been bound had a familiar face and had not yet inquired. The young eunuch approached and respectfully said, "Sir, I have been ordered by your majesty to bring the son of Nanhebo, Fang Jifan, to come and review. I have acted according to orders. Please do not blame me." Fang Jifan felt that the atmosphere of the entire exam hall suddenly changed. At first, the meritorious children around them were fortunate enough to move around and watch the excitement. When they heard the words Fang Jifan, they all immediately retreated like gods avoiding plague. Then, someone burst into laughter. End of this chapter. 10, Chapter 10 Review. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Review. Upon hearing Fang Jifan's name, Zhang Mao's face also darkened. He even recognized this kid when he turned into ashes. Zhang Mao was a fierce general who fought in the south and north. Fang Jifan's father, Fang Jinglong, had once served under this husband. This was a lifelong friendship that had once carried a gun in a trench. I had heard that Fang Jinglong had given birth to an unworthy son who not only sold out his family business, but also did not anger Fang Jinglong to the death. Even when Fang Jinglong returned to Beijing triumphantly last time, he came to his own mansion to pay his respects, looking shy and worldly. Zhang Mao looked at the appearance of Fang Jifan being tied up in various ways. He thought that everyone was eager to come and proofread. "You were good, but you were still tied up. I dare say that if it weren't for your majesty's name, you wouldn't have come. Shame, what a shame." If it weren't for paying attention to the occasion, Zhang Mao would have wanted to beat his chest and stumble. It's a pity for Fang Jinglong. How could the loyal and virtuous old Fang family have given birth to such a thing? The most regrettable thing is that this guy is still delicate and tender, with a handsome and youthful appearance on his face. Bah, why is he like a playboy in a pear garden? Among the handsome sons and daughters in various dukes and nobles' mansions, which one is not tall and imposing? Are you Fang Jifan? Fang Jifan blushed and was about to say something. Zhang Mao pointed at Fang Jifan and said with a stern expression, "Untie his rope." Two pro-soldiers untied the ropes of Fang Jifan. Fang Jifan only felt his body stretch out a bit before he could relax. The British Duke Zhang Mao, who had white hair and beard, pointed to his nose and complained bitterly, "Your father is also a hero. Why did he give birth to this useless thing like you? He is reluctant to teach his son a lesson, but I insist on disciplining you. You are still selling your ancestral property, so it's better to be a pig or a dog." After saying this, he raised his hand and was about to hit. Fang Jifan was stunned. As for what he wanted to hide, but fortunately, a few military officials around him couldn't see it and quickly stopped Zhang Mao. He said, "Grandpa, today's review, we must not do this." Zhang Mao was so angry that his teeth itched, and he angrily said, "Okay, although I have been ordered to take the exam today, isn't it that your Fang Jifan also wants to review it? I'm just staring at you, seeing if you, a useless spendthrift, dare to cause trouble. Come and distribute paper and pens. Fang Jifan, you sit here." He pointed towards an empty desk in front with a cold expression on his face. Fang Jifan felt uneasy in his heart. It was better to be cautious in his words and actions in the current situation. This British Duke doesn't seem easy to provoke. He obediently sat on the empty desk in front of him, and then a clerk picked up pens, ink, paper, and inkstones to distribute. "Move my chair over," Zhang Mao said with his hands behind his back. Fang Jifan blushed, but saw Zhang Mao sitting in front of his desk and staring at his every move. The candidates behind them secretly rejoiced when they saw this. Zhang Mao immediately said, "At first, the proofreading of the Ming Dynasty was about horsemanship and archery. However, since Emperor won, if we only focus on horsemanship and archery, we cannot discuss heroes. Therefore, Emperor Wen has a grace decree to change the strategy and examination. This is not only to allow you to offer advice to the court, but also to test your talents. Your Majesty has already set the question, come, take the question." Then, a civil servant held up a sign, and Fang Jifan felt cold at the back of Zhang Mao's gaze. However, upon reading the question, he ignored Zhang Mao. But there were several gold lacquer characters written on the memorial archway. "Y Town Southwest." At a glance, this question is a question from the Emperor: how can we solve the problem in the Southwest? It should be noted that since the early Ming Dynasty, the court has incorporated various provinces in the Southwest into its territory. In order to govern Guangxi, Yunnan, and other areas, the court has set up many border states and border guards in the southwest, and ordered chieftains to govern the areas. However, since Emperor Taizu, there has been no peace in the southwest, and the local chieftains or people have been rebelling almost every 3 to 5 days. Just last year, the Fujiang Rebellion occurred in Guangxi, and the court racked its brains to quell the rebellion. Fang Jifan's father, Fang Jinglong, was also ordered to go to Guangxi to suppress the rebellion, although the rebellion was suppressed. In pacification, the casualties of the Ming army were also significant, consuming an unknown amount of money and food. I think the barbarians in the southwest have become a thorn in the heart of Emperor Hongji. This time, during the review, such a question came up. The candidates looked at the questions and their eyes lit up. These meritorious children had long heard of the Southwest Rebellion, and many of their parents had experienced going to the Southwest to quell the rebellion. How could they beat up these barbarians? This is not easy. So one by one, they picked up their pens and enthusiastically started answering the questions. Fang Jifan stared at the question and pondered for a long time. He knew that this was the opportunity he had finally won for proofreading. If he could rank among the top, he would have the opportunity to shed his previous shame. However, if he failed, he would probably have to continue to rot in his lifetime. Fang Jifan perked up and looked up, only to see Zhang Mao's gaze. Fang Jifan gave him a friendly smile, but Zhang Mao's face stretched even longer. If others laughed like this, Zhang Mao still thought this kid was good, respecting the old and loving the young. People like Fang Jifan had the same smile, and Zhang Mao instinctively thought that this kid was having some ulterior motives. He looked angry, but saw that Fang Jifan had lowered his head and started writing quickly. He can even write. Can Fang's kid write? Fang Jifan was really writing. In his previous life, he practiced calligraphy well with his brush and even participated in a calligraphy interest class during his school years. Of course, it was impossible to compare with the calligraphy masters of this era, but his identity was enough to deceive people. He condensed his breath, speechless seriousness, and his wrist turned in one breath. However, he thought to himself, if he had the privilege of obtaining the golden belt, who would let our Jifan inject him again? Our Jifan would beat him to death with the golden belt. Zhang Mao sat on the side, but was shocked and dumbfounded. This kid really knows how to write. Perhaps this kid isn't as bad as he imagined. Is he spreading false information and someone exaggerating it? He turned to thinking. Unexpectedly, Fang Jifan had already finished writing, but he was the one who answered the fastest. A big master around me staring at me, really uncomfortable. Fang Jifan even felt that Zhang Mao was like an old glass. Is it tolerable or not? However. Anyway, my friend is a spendthrift, and this image may not be able to change for a while, so without hesitation, Fang Jifan said, submit the paper. Hand in. Hand in the paper shocked 4 people. Many candidates raised their heads and looked at Fang Jifan in surprise. Soon, they seemed to feel normal again, each secretly pleased. The black sheep of the Fang family were indeed the black sheep of the Fang family. It was truly true that these were only 2 sticks of incense. It was still a long time before the exam was completed, but this guy had already submitted the paper. Was it a blank paper? Fang Jifan ignored these gazes, he just wanted to escape far away. Anyway, the question had already been answered, whether he could win or not depends on fate. Zhang Mao was so angry that he vomited blood and slammed Fang Jifan's case paper. He said angrily, Fang Jifan. You really. How unreasonable you are. Okay, take his paper and seal it. I originally wanted to get angry, but upon closer examination, it seems that getting angry during this review is not very meaningful. If this kid wants to die, then let's die. Without stopping, Fang Jifan bowed to Zhang Mao and said, let's go. He then flew away as if. End of this chapter.